I want to just start with this. Kamala's on a media blitz, is what the media likes to say. Actually, she kicked it off with "Call Her Daddy," and then gone on a Howard Stern, Colbert. Technically these are media outlets, but I got a lot of feedback from people who said, I'm not really sure people fully appreciate what "Call Her Daddy" really is and the message that it sends to women. What did you think of that?
Well, I think that when there's a massive hurricane going through North Carolina and FEMA's not showing up for a week, that maybe you should reprioritize going on a program called Call Her Daddy versus dealing with what's happening in North Carolina and Georgia. But that's just my personal preference. The reason she went on Call Her Daddy is because she's trying to appeal to women. In states like North Carolina and Georgia, there is a significant gender gap. So from a campaign strategy, she went onto the program to try to appeal to women, especially younger women. That podcast has a pretty massive following, and it gave her the opportunity to put out some viral-ish like saying that we are already seeing on Instagram and TikTok. One of her sayings was, there's some women who are not aspiring to be humble, or who want to be more ambitious, in other words, basically trying to play on and criticize the president and JD Vance with accusing them in a way of minimizing women's role, not realizing that especially President Trump has surrounded himself with women in key decision-making roles, both in the previous administration as well as on the campaign. But this is just a strategy for her to have her viral moments and try to appeal to so many more younger women, because that is a key demographic for her in her campaign strategy.
Doug, is the strategy working right? I mean, you've run for office. Your team comes to you and says, "Hey, Congressman, here are the 5 interviews that we have time for today." I assume that they're saying to you, "We think this is good because it's going to hit this area, this demographic, or whatever." So, she's done 60 Minutes. We'll talk about that in just a second because I want to get to that. But she's done Call Her Daddy, Howard Stern, Stephen Colbert. If do you think that, like, as a strategy, this makes sense?
It's the only strategy I got, Sean. I mean, look, Ashley laid it out very well about Call Her Daddy podcast. Look, they're playing to that's the abortion play right there. That's the women's rights, ability, reproductive rights, the women's health care issue. That's where they're playing. But notice what they did here. And you mentioned 60 Minutes, but the 60 Minutes is buried among 4 powder puff kind of interviews where nothing was going to be said to her that was terrible, and she still messed it up. I mean, how do you go on The View as a Democrat and get messed up on your own messaging when you were asked, what would you change from Joe Biden? Oh, I wouldn't do anything. And then you go on to Colbert later that evening with your Miller High Life, and you get a chance to pick it up again. And
it was a mulligan. Yeah, that was like, dude, okay, we're going to give you a second shot at not screwing this up. And she's like, no. Let me screw it up again, right? I mean, Bradley, the thing that's so funny is, from a media strategy, to my question with Doug, I mean, you get presented with these outlets, and the goal is, we think that this will move the needle for us. This will help reach an audience. You look at the aforementioned interviews that we just did, and the biggest clip coming out is her on The View, which is a gimme, with a quote that says, and I'll get to this in a second, but she basically says, hey, I'm not going to do anything different than Joe Biden, and that now has become an ad. The Trump campaign's literally like, thank you.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
From a media strategy standpoint, she was going on layup type media outlets and moved the needle backwards.
Well, first off, I never thought I'd hear Doug say "call her daddy," and I don't think I ever want to hear those words come out of that Georgia mouth ever again. Call Her Daddy, I was really excited when she was going to do Call Her Daddy, the sex podcast, because finally I would be able to write the real story about how Kamala Harris became a force in American politics without being called a sexist and a loon. I mean, there was not a one Willie Brown spoken during the Call Her Daddy podcast, and that's what I thought it was going to be about. Oh my gosh, the open mistress of Willie Brown gets appointed to all these different jobs where she gets $400,000 over the course of 4 years. Finally, we can have an honest conversation about feminist Kamala Harris making her way to the top, Sean. No, of course that didn't happen. This is the media strategy that Kamala Harris has right now, playing catch up for Donald Trump. Donald Trump, over the past 8 years has revealed the media to be the political apparatus of the Democratic Party in the town square. And because of that, what have we seen? We've seen a decentralization of the media environment. So now what is Donald Trump's media strategy since he can't get a fair shake, whether it's on the debate stage or in an interview? Well, I'm going to go on Andrew Schulz's podcast. I'm going to go talk to Theo Vaughn. Maybe I won't do any of your hoity-toity 60-minute interviews. Instead, I'm going to go talk to people who are focused on reaching everyday Americans and having casual conversations, and Trump comes off as likable. Kamala Harris does not. And so her bookers are thinking, we got to get her in those same environments, and she cannot thrive the way that Donald Trump does. So that's what I think is behind this late media blitz by the Kamala Harris campaign.
Oh, it's really, really quickly.
ahead,
What I
Ash.
think is interesting is that the Call Her Daddy podcast is supposed to focus on women's rights, personal stories, mental health, things of that nature. It's more sexual in nature, to your point. However, they're doing these interviews to micro-target people. And that interview in particular is targeting a demographic that younger women, they actually don't typically vote. So it's interesting how she's using her time to try and appeal and micro-target to voters that actually probably are not going to be inspired to vote for her after listening to that. And the other thing is this week, her husband, it came out with all these stories about how he was physically abusive.
Yep.
And, when are you going to start addressing that? How about that for a women's rights point of view?
How crazy is this that you have these massive allegations about Doug Emhoff, about the nanny, the abuse, and then there's another story that came out that says at the law firm, he would basically make, comments about people's young women's appearance. And yet, nobody will touch it. Nobody will touch it. In fact, and I get it, but the thing that's funny is they want to make this, him this, what do they call it? The redefinition of masculinity. And no one will talk about the fact that he's got multiple allegations of sexism, of abuse.
No.
But they took Donald Trump to court in New York over an allegation.
Yeah. Hey, the Doug Emhoff stuff has become the Hunter Biden laptop story of this cycle right now. It's the Hunter laptop. They don't want to touch it because they know it's effective. They know that it's true in everything that's come up. Because here's the one thing, Sean, I've not heard a lot of back channel, because you know how this works. If that story comes out, the back channel comes in and says, no, this isn't true. This isn't true. I haven't heard any back channel. They've just sort of left it alone because they don't want to touch it. This is the Hunter Biden laptop story right here.
I think you're right. I mean, the idea, by the way, trust me, you know why? Because Doug, here's what's again, I don't think she's going to win. If anyone saw the road to 270 yesterday, you know what? I don't believe that's going to happen. But God forbid she did. In March of next year, there's going to be new evidence from his former law firm Venable that came out that, oh yeah, he did do the following, and it's just too late now. And we didn't, it was Rudy Giuliani and Steve Bannon that suppressed it. I mean, they're going to blame it on somebody on the right. We've talked about 60 Minutes. I want people to see this. It's gone viral. I put it out on all my social media channels, but I want people to understand what I'm about to show you. This is the first thing that you're going to see is 60 Minutes' actual unedited interview. They ask her a question about Israel and how she answers it. And then I'm going to show you right afterwards what they played on 60 Minutes edited. And that's what the American people saw. So let's take a look at this and just see what I'm talking about.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Bradley, that's not even editing. I mean, that's Hollywood. We're going to script this for you. Bill Whitaker asked great questions. I give him credit for that. But this is unbelievable. They literally are like, no, don't worry. We'll take care of you no matter what you say. The unedited answer is a word salad of nothingness. What she said, I think, was stupid still. But at the end of the day, it sounded a lot more coherent.
Yeah, Sean, I think it's worth giving Bill credit for the questions that he asked. Now, they were very basic questions, and you could see through her facial expressions, even in that clip, how frustrated she's getting. She's leaning in, she's raising her eyebrows. You can see her pursing her lips a little bit. That's all telltale signs that she's ticked off, that this is how 60 Minutes is approaching this interview. As for the editors of this interview, what, did they just fall out of a coconut tree? I mean, thankfully now, more and more voters are digitally native, if you've heard that term before. They know how the media environment operates in a digital space, so they can see cuts. They can see these types of cuts that they're putting into the CNN interview, and that's why, or the 60 Minutes interview, and that's why it's been picked up all over the place, is because we know that Kamala Harris cannot formulate a coherent sentence, and so they have to do all of this jump cutting, and that only deters more voters away from her, in my personal opinion. And even if you look at the edited answers, Sean, there's not a whole lot there. Right. So for her to still be struggling with these answers when we're on the brink of a broader regional war in the Middle East, on the brink of potentially World War III if Russia, who's still fighting Ukraine, gets involved with the Iranians fighting against Israel, like who knows how this can spiral out of control. She had almost a month blackout from the media, and now she's going on this media blitz, and she cannot formulate basic, simple, clear answers for the American people. That's why the American people still don't know a lot about Kamala Harris, is because she can't say anything even when she does get in front of the camera.
Doug, how many times, I mean, if this was a Republican, if you put a campaign ad out like this, they would say that they would accuse you and your campaign of editing, you know, and yet here I mean, this is the media doing it. That's not what she said. They edited it.
Yep.
I mean, I don't, how does no one in the rest of the media call that out and say, this is not an acceptable practice for us?
Yeah, here's the way I would actually call this out. I'm going to take a little different take. I agree with everything that was just said about this interview, and I put it out on social as well. But I'm waiting for the RNC to file a complaint with the FEC about an in-kind contribution, because they offered this interview to both. There's no equal access issue or equal time access issue problem. The problem is Trump decided not to do it. That's fine. They could have done the interview and let everything else go and then just let it out there, let the American people decide. Instead, they edited it, they polished it, they made it into a campaign ad, you could argue, because they made her say something she really did not say. Until mainstream media is held accountable for these type of blatant editing acts, this is going to continue. This is a blatant in-kind contribution. I don't see how they get around it.
You know, actually, the funny thing is, Trump refused in part to do the interview because when he last met with Leslie Stahl, she lied about Hunter Biden's laptop. She said it wasn't true, it wasn't real, and Trump said, I want an apology. They started the interview by saying Trump asked for an interview, claiming that we said it was not, you know, legitimate and that we never did that. That was false. They actually did. The interview's out there. We put that out there as well. They did say that. Leslie Stahl undermined the legitimacy of the accusation that the laptop, and now they do this. They are, as Doug said, a tool of the Democratic Party. I'm glad Trump didn't do it.
Yeah, me too. I don't think he should do any more debates. I don't think that he should lean in. I think what he's doing, reaching directly to the American people, going on the other various podcasts that he's been going to, that is the way to win people over at this point in time. Right now, given how close we are to the election, this is about turnout. And there's really not very many people left to persuade. And we know the truth. We've seen the truth. And the left, the establishment media is trying to basically prop Kamala up so that her base feels she doesn't have to have a big policy idea. She doesn't have to do anything extraordinary. She just has to not be Joe Biden and be able to move forward and be acceptable to their base. Right. They have an enthusiasm problem.
Can I piggyback off this for a second? Because I think this is really, really interesting. It is all about turnout. That is the current rules of the election system. That's what it is right now. Like, Doug, where is Stacey Abrams and her voter registration machine? I haven't heard anything 19th. From.
That's a good question.
I haven't heard anything 19th. About the sitting governor of Georgia this election cycle registering a bunch of people.
An article just today came out about it. Seriously, you should say that article just came out today about that. They're in financial trouble and they're way, way, way below their goals for what they've been hitting. Look, that was nothing but a grift. Let's just be frank about that. That was a grift from day one.
Totally. But what Ashley previously said at the top of this segment was that Kamala Harris is doing these things to reach low propensity voters. That's not the problem that Kamala Harris has right now. Kamala Harris needs to shore up the divisions in her own base and get them to the polls. Now, with Donald Trump, this alternative media strategy makes more sense. Why? Because the Republican Party, under this realignment that's happened under Trump, is now relying on those low propensity voters to come out to the polls. If you look at the people who are unlikely to vote, I mean, massive advantage for Trump right now. And Trump needs to make sure that those people get there. And how do you reach these people who are apolitical but still side with the former president? Well, you got to reach them through Theo Vaughn. You got to reach them through Andrew Schultz. You got to reach them through, hopefully, maybe Joe Rogan. But I don't think that's a possibility since Trump kind of went after Joe Rogan previously. But I think Ashley makes a great point there, right? Turnout is the game now, and this isn't improving Kamala Harris's prospects with the people that she needs to win Michigan, namely the people who are upset about the Israel policy.
All right, guys, here's the question I want to ask you based on what you just said. And I want to keep this brief because I got a bunch of things, but you've sort of sparked a thought. When Kamala Harris loses on November 6th, there's going to be a blame game. They're going to blame, okay, I won't fill in the blank yet. What do you think is going to be the dominant reason that is given for her losing the race? Is it a tactic? Is it a person? Is it timing? Ashley, I'll start with you. What are Democrats going to say was the biggest reason she lost?
The election was stolen.
You think they're going there?
Why not? They did it. Hillary Clinton said it. Stacey Abrams said it. They'll say like, no, she's actually the president. The only other thing I would say is they might blame Joe Biden.
Okay. That's what Doug, what do you think is going to be the number one reason that Democrats say they lost?
The same reason for Stacey and everything. I agree with Ashley on the first part. But I think the bigger narrative is going to come up is Biden, and they're going to bring the Bidens. They're going to bring Jill and Joe. And I've got you one.
And when you said, do you think that they're going to blame them and just say they didn't leave quick enough or that they didn't help?
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, it's come out the last week. I mean, he's scheduling stuff on top of her. He's contradicting her. I mean, I think it's hilarious. But I think one of the biggest October surprises could actually come this month against Harris and possibly be rooted in the Bidens, and we won't find out about it for 5 years.
Okay. Bradley, what do you think?
SCOTUS.
They're going to blame the court.
Really?
I think they're going to blame the court. I think they're going to say that they were not proactive enough and they ruled incorrectly on all of the legal issues that have plagued Donald Trump during this campaign cycle. That Donald Trump, the orange man, the evil orange man, should have been in an orange suit this entire time. He should have been relegated to the dustbin.
So will they blame DOJ or the court? They're going to say the court.
They're going to say the court impeded. They're going to say the court impeded the DOJ in prosecuting Trump, and that Trump should have never been able to run for office. And therefore, we're going to lay the groundwork, because Democrats aren't going to blame another Democrat. Never.
Right.
That's only things that the Republican consulting class tend to do. And so when Kamala Harris loses, if she loses, I think it's going to be the SCOTUS, because then they're going to be able to lay the groundwork for packing the court and ending the filibuster when they do take back power.
Okay, good point.
Sean, real quick, I want to add to that, because I agree with what he said, but I want to add something else. I think let's move beyond the surface level of Democrats. You get to the real operatives in the Democratic Party, I think there's going to be a real discussion, not that maybe that public, but they're going to lay the blame at Harris's feet. The Democratic operatives are going to lay it at her feet.
I think you're onto something, Doug, because I think they're going to say she couldn't handle the interviews. Right. She wasn't authentic enough. Biden got it. I think that Biden, I actually, this is where I think I'm a little different. I think you're right. There's going to be people who say he didn't get out of the race early enough, but I think they're going to say she couldn't close the deal. Right. Biden got out of the way, and then she was inauthentic. She wasn't, I mean, like Hillary got blamed for not going to Wisconsin. Look at where she is today. What's she doing? She's not working hard. This is not the sign of a campaign that's in the final 30 days of a campaign. I don't know where the heck she is today, but she's not doing. I remember in 2016, Trump was like boom, 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 everywhere all the time. She has to close the deal. People don't know who she is. I'd be out there going everywhere every day.
But maybe they don't want people to know who she is.
I know that's the other. I get it, but that gets back to this idea that I agree that she was not a good candidate and she was horrible at closing the deal. I agree with you. Part of the reason she's not out there is because they're like, we don't like what we see. It's the same reason that Biden wasn't out there. It's because he couldn't, right? Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.